Hello, and today we're going to be working through activity 2.2.3, moving with color for project Lead the Way, Principles of Engineering. To do this, first we have to start by setting up a motor and plugging it into port 5 of our VEX brain. Then we're going to go to this VEX coding environment. I've already opened that tab, and we're going to start by going to File and then open a new text project, and we're going to pick Python as our language. I'm going to name this one while I'm here thinking about it. I'm just going to do my initials, and then it's activity 2.2.3, and we'll save that. I'm just going to save it in my folder there. Once we have that saved, then it tells us in the activity just to start off by coding so that our motor rotates 90 degrees from its starting position. So to do that, first we have to add a device and add our motor. So we're going to go to motor. I'm going to go to port 5, and then I'm going to name it pointer because at the end this is going to be a pointer for our color sensor. So I'm going to hit done. Once I do that, then I'm going to come into my code. I would collapse this down, make it a little easier to read. And we just want this motor spin to position command. You can start typing it out, or I'm just going to drag it over since it's already there. And we get pointer spin to position 90 degrees. We'll connect our brain and download it and catch you at the brain. So we have a pointer on our motor. We downloaded the code to our brain, and we got our motor plugged into port 5. We're going to hit run, and then you can see our pointer rotates 90 degrees. Next, we want to change our code so that instead of 90 degrees, our motor rotates to 150 degrees. So we're just going to change that 90 to 150. And then it wants us to add a wait time of 1 second afterwards. So we're going to type in wait 1 and then type in seconds, or you can just hit tab to get seconds. Again, you download that to your brain, and it wants you to watch what happens on that one. So we have that 150 degree code on our brain now. Our arrow is now pointing at 90 degrees from where it originally did. We hit run, and you can see it rotates around. Next, it wants us to create a variable called midpoint. I'm going to put that at the beginning of my code. You could put this after or here at the beginning. I like to usually try to put my variables at the beginning. So we're going to create this midpoint variable by doing midpoint and then tell it what it's equal to. And in this VEX coding environment, it does follow the rules of PEMDAS. So we want to make sure we put addition 150 plus 0 inside parentheses, and then we can close those parentheses and then divide it by 2 to get the midpoint. And then down below our wait time, we're going to return our pointer to that midpoint, so it's halfway between those 0 value and the 150. So we're going to type in pointer dot, tell it to spin to, and we want to do spin for to position. And instead of typing a degree number in, we're going to type in midpoint, and then we'll select degrees and then close our parentheses. Once you have that, you'll download that to your brain, and then we'll so we've downloaded this new midpoint code. So we're going to hit run. We rotate 150 degrees, and then we'll come back to the midpoint. Next, we're going to add in this VEX Optical sensor. This is a sensor that can sense objects in front of it, and it can be used for things like color sense. Today, that's going to be our main goal, using it as a color sensor. We're going to plug that into port 1 and then set it up in our coding environment. Now that we plugged in our optical sensor, we want to set it up in this coding environment. So we need to add a device. It's going to be an optical sensor. We plugged it into port 1, so we'll select port 1. And today we're going to use it as a color sensor, so I'm going to name it color sensor. Once I'm done, I select done, and I'll collapse that down. Then it told us we need to comment out. You could actually get rid of, but what's this comment out? So comment out this first segment by doing 3 parentheses before and then 3 apostrophes, before and after it. Then we want to start with a while true statement. So we're going to do while, and I'll just do it under lowercase, while with a capital true, and then a colon at the end. And within this while true statement, first we want to clear our brain. So we're going to do brain screen dot clear screen. Then we're going to go to our next line and tell our cursor to start at the beginning at the top of our screen. So we're going to set cursor at 1, 1. Then on this brain screen, what we want to do is display our brightness, and I'm actually going to show you how to change the font because a lot of times that's really small, and to make it a little bit easier to see, we're going to do green screen dot set, and we're going to set font, and then it gives us some options we can do to make it easier to see. I'm going to make it a size 40 font, so that's going to make it a lot larger. We'll close that parentheses at the end, and then we'll tell it what we want to do. If you want to change your color here, you could also change your color. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Green screen dot set, and we can set the color of the pen or the font or the color of the background. If we wanted to, we could set the background as well. I'm going to set my pen color, and I'm just going to select a different color. Usually it displays as white just so that we can make a different color. It's going to be a black background, so I'm going to put blue on it for now, and I'll change it back to white later. Finally, I'm going to change spring screen, and I'm going to print, and I want to show my values from this color center. So I want to show my value, so I'm going to print, and then inside my parentheses, after print, I need a parentheses. I need to tell it what to see. So I'm going to do color center, and it tells us we want to use brightness, and then I'm going to click on it. That way I get my open and close parentheses in there. Then finally at the end we need a wait time, so it has time to process. So I'm going to do wait, and I'm going to do a 1/4 second there. That way we have time for it to process and for us to read it, because this value can sometimes bounce around a little bit. Once you do that, then you're going to download it to your brain, and we'll see what values we get. So we've downloaded the optical sensor, and we got this optical sensor plugged in. We're going to hit run. And on our screen, it might be kind of hard to see just because it's in that blue font. We get values for the sensor with nothing in front of it. Then we put our hand and cover that sensor, and you can see we get values very, very close to 0. Then we take our hand away, and you can see our new values around 10, 11. When it's gone, cover it back up, it's back to 0. Now we want to add in code so that optical sensor, which has a LED light built into it, displays or doesn't display, depending on if it's in the light or dark environment. So we want, if it's dark, the light turns on. If it's not dark, the light stays off. So after the spring screen, but before our wait statement, I like to put some enters before our wait statement. We're going to put in an if statement. So we're going to do if, and then we want if our color sensor, and we want to check the brightness. Don't forget your open close parentheses there at the end. That's one of the common things people forget. We want it, if it's less than, it was close to 0, so I'm going to say less than 5. I'm going to put a colon at the end of that statement. Hit enter. Then what do we want it to do? We want the color sensor LED to turn on. So we want color sensor to set light, and then the state is going to be on, LED on. Then if it's not greater than 5, we want that LED light to go off. So I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to go back and make that an else statement. You could also do an if, but I'm going to do an else. So else, I forgot my colon at the end, and I wanted to add in additional if statement before. If you put the colon, it doesn't do that, but we'll go ahead and work with that. So then if color sensor, we want to set the light state to LED state is off. And then again, we wait 0.25 seconds after. Download that to our brain, and we'll test that code out. So we just uploaded that code. We let it run. Right now our LED is not on. When you go to cover, you can see that LED comes on, and then it goes off. And then I cover it, and it's on and off. So next, we want to use that optical sensor to detect different colors. So I'm actually going to get rid of some of these statements we just added. I'm going to go all the way back to this brightness and get rid of all of those statements. You could comment them out, but I don't think we'll use those again. Also, while I'm here, I'm going to change my color back to white. Hopefully that's a little easier for us to see as we do our next step. For the next step, we want the brain screen to go to the next line. So I'm going to do brain screen dot next row, and that sets us up on the next line. And I want it on the next line to, well, we haven't done anything on this line, so I don't have to go to the next row yet. But I want the brain screen to show what color hue or what color is being shown by LED, by optical sensor. So I'm going to do brain screen dot print, and then I want it to print from my color sensor, so I'm going to type in color so it shows on the screen, it's showing the color, and then a comma, and then I'm going to tell it I need to use my color sensor, I need to detect the color, and then open and close parentheses so it's actually reading that color. We'll download that to our brain and see how that functions. One thing I left off this code was we want to turn on our LED. You could do that before the while true or right after our while true. It's going to give us the same effect. We're just going to turn on the color sensor LED. So color sensor set light state, and we'll do that to a LED state type is on. And that's going to turn that LED light on for us. Once we do that, then we're going to download it to our brain and use that as for our. So I've downloaded that code to our brain. As you can see, it's showing a color, and what we're going to do is we're going to hold different colors up in front of it, and that's going to change that value on our display. So for blue, we get this value of 0075F, 00FF. Then I get a different color, say a red object, and that changes that value to 00FF, 0000. Then if I change it to, let's say, a yellow object. So now I got a yellow object, and again it changes that value that displays on my screen. So that's how this optical sensor displays your color. So now I've taken off, I forgot to hit record, but I've taken off those previous statements we added. So now we have the all clear screen. We set a cursor 1, we got this large font, and we color it white. And then now this time we want to use our color sensor to display the color and actually show what that color is. So on the display screen right now, it would show an RGB value. A lot of people that doesn't mean much to. So what we want to display instead is an actual color name like red, blue, and yellow that you're more accustomed to. So what we're going to do is add an if statement. So we're going to do an if, and then we'll look at the color sensor, and we'll see what color it sees, and then we'll say if that's equal to the color red, and red's going to be in all caps, and we put a colon at the end. Then on our screen we want the brain screen to print, and I'm going to tell it to actually print in that color. So we want to, and before we print, we want to set our pen color, and I'm going to do red first, and we want that set to red. And then we want it to print, if I can spell screen, we want it to print our color sensor value as, or value that it's going to display as red. You got to put it in quotes so it puts it on the screen exactly as you type it, red. And we'll repeat that process for each of the other colors. And once I'm done with that, I'll come back and show you the code, and we'll upload. So we have it set up for the colors red and blue right now. So if we look at it, our color sensors, if it's red, it should display red. If it's blue, it should display blue, and the color font's going to coordinate to that particular color. We'll download that to our device. Hopefully the code uploads correctly, and then we'll. So now we'll test that color sensor code. So we'll start with the red object, and you can see as we put that in front of it, it displays red in red on our screen. And then we'll do the same thing with the blue object. So we'll clear out, the display clears, and then we put a blue object in, and we want it to display blue. Sometimes it has some trouble because of the texture of that blue. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and we'll look at a way to troubleshoot around this. But you can see that blue pops up there if it reads it correctly. So a lot of times a better way to get our color codes to show up is using what we call hues. So to do that, we're going to start by just going back, and we're going to hit on devices. Under devices, we can go to our optical sensor, and then we can see what values we're getting from that optical sensor. So we can hold our blue object in front of it, and we can see values around like a 242 for that object right now. I can hold my red object in front of it, and we can see values of very near 0.005. I can hold my yellow object, I can get this yellow object back out, and we'll get values around 40 in this case. So we can get those different values for those colors we're using. So now what we want to do in our code, instead of using the color sensor and what it reads as the color, we want to change that to these hue values. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to kind of separate these out just so it's a little easier for you to see what's going on. We're going to start with this red section, and we're going to get rid of where it says color red, and we want to do color sensor instead of color, we want to do hue. And then open and close those parentheses. And then for red, if you look on our chart, it's going to be a value of 0 plus or minus 30. So we're going to start with the minus. So we're going to say if it's greater than negative 30, if I can type. But then we also want, so we're going to do and color sensor. And again, we want hue. And now we're going to do open close parentheses for it to read the hue. And now we want to do less than 0 plus 30, so it's going to be 30. And don't forget your colon at the end if you did delete it. But we're still going to do the same thing. Brain screen still going to read red and print red in color. We'll do the same thing down here with our blue code, and we'll also add in a yellow code as well. So on this one, again, we're changing it to color sensor.hue. Open close parentheses, and we're typing the values for blue. If we look on our chart, it says 240 plus or minus 30. 240 minus 30 would give us 210. So we're going to do greater than 210 and color sensor hue, if I can type it, color sensor dot hue. Again, I need to type. And then we're going to do less than 240 plus 30 would give us 270 for that one. I'll add in the yellow one. I'll show that to you, and then we'll test it out. So we added in yellow. It's essentially the same thing we had on the other two, only it's going to be values of 30 and 90 because it was 60 plus or minus 30, which gives us the 30 on the low end and 90 on the high end. We'll download that to our brain and then test it out. So we download it to the brain and we'll test this color sensor. So we'll start and we'll do red first, and you can see it when we put red in front of it, we get red values. Then I'll do my blue since that's next in my sequence, and we get blue when that one's on. Then we switch over and we'll do yellow, and we can see we get yellow for that. So that shows our color sensor working. One thing we didn't do is detect if an object was near our color sensor. So a lot of times our ambient values can be around a yellow value. So we want to add that into our code, and we're going to do that before our first color sense value. So I'm going to do I'm going to go above there and type in an if, and it's going to be if my color sensor object is near. So we want to see is near an object. And then we're going to open and close that parentheses, and we want that equal 1, and then close parentheses. And that's going to give us our next statements. If this color sensor is, then we just have to indent each one of these other values below it to make it go within that statement. And that's going to make it so it doesn't show yellow when we don't have any object near it. And that's just to make our color sensor function a little bit better than it did before. So I'm going to fix that last line and then download that to our brain, and we'll have that fixed up. So the last thing we're going to do now is set it up so as we put these different colors in front of our sensor, our pointer indicator, the motor we have set up with the pointer at the beginning, points to, we'll put a physical piece of paper down and label it with the colors red, blue, and yellow at 90, 180, and 270 degrees. So I'm going to hit enter after this red. I'm going to do pointer. I'm going to spin to position, and red's going to be at 90 degrees, so 90 and then degrees. Close that off, and then I'm going to put wait time, that way it has time for us to read that. I'm just going to do a 1 second wait time on that. Then I'm going to do the same thing for my blue. So I'm going to go to blue again, pointer, spin to position, and this time it's going to be 180 degrees. And again, I want a wait time of 1 second. That way we have time to sense it and read it before we go on to the last one. Last one's going to be a pointer is going to go to spin to position, and now it's going to spin to, I'm going to do negative 90. You could do a positive 270, but I'm going to do a negative 90 because a lot of times we'll be coming from home. Again, I'll do a wait time of 1 second. Then I want an else statement, because we could have nothing going on. Else, I could have a different color, one that it doesn't recognize. So I'm going to do else, and I should have put colons at the end. I'm going to retype that in. Do else, colon at the end, enter, and then I want my pointer to go back to that home position pointer and spin to position, and we want it to go to 0 degrees when nothing's in front of it, or a color that it doesn't recognize. I'm also going to do that after this wait time we have from our brain screen reading. I'm going to have the pointer, that way if nothing's in front of it, it's also going to spin to that 0 position, so 0 degrees. And then I'm going to download that, set up my piece of paper underneath so we have that indicator, and test that program out. I'll catch y'all. So we've set up this piece of paper with red at 90, blue at 180, and yellow at 270 or negative 90 degrees. We've downloaded this code to our brain, and we have our optical sensor here. We're going to start with red, and you can see it goes to red, and then as I take it off, it goes back to home. Then I do my blue, and for whatever reason, it recognized that as red. So now when it recognizes it's blue, it points to blue. Then we'll do our yellow, and it goes to yellow. Take that off, it goes back home. We can repeat that. We can do our blue, and it goes back to 180. So hopefully this helps you work through activity 2.2.3 in principles of engineering, getting that color sensor set up and spinning to the position you need. Thank you, and good.